Hello, students, and welcome to the lecture notes for Chapter 11, Jesus, the Bread of Life. I know you know this chapter, but we're going to now cover detailed information that you are responsible to know. So before we begin with the Chapter 11 unit objectives, I am going to review Lent and Easter. We're going to review some facts. So please write these things down. For the first slide on Lent and Easter, you need to know that Lent is 6 weeks, 40 days. It begins with Ash Wednesday. And then after Lent finishes, we begin with Holy Week. And Holy Week starts on Palm Sunday. Okay, this year, Palm Sunday is going to be on April 5th. It is the day that we commemorate Jesus entering into Jerusalem on a donkey, and the palms are waved. And next year, those same palms are going to appear in the form of ashes. Remember, they're burnt, and then those ashes go on our forehead on the next Ash Wednesday for 2021. So please keep that in mind. Holy Week contains the Holy Triduum. Holy Triduum is comprised of the Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Holy Saturday. Holy Triduum is capital Triduum. Okay, you probably remember this term from the liturgical calendar. So these seasons are approaching. So please be aware that this is coming up. As we prepare for Easter, we're going to cover chapter 11 and 12. For this particular lecture, I'm only going to cover chapter 11. So let's begin with the details on the Passion of Christ and all of the events that are leading up to this moment of the crucifixion. We'll start with the objectives. Jesus is preparing his apostles and disciples for all that's to come. Jesus tells them, I will always be with you. And then Jesus suffers for the sins of humanity, and he fulfills God's plan of salvation. So let's look at the first one. How does he prepare them? First things first, he enters into Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover with them, and he says to them many different important facts. One of them is that they would have eternal life with him. Eternal life is what will lead them to happiness with God forever. So the first one is it's eternal life for your blank. The next one is the night before he died, he shared his final meal with his apostles, and this meal is called the Last Supper. Please write that down, the Last Supper. Okay, and moving on, when the Last Supper was taking place, these four main events took place at the Last Supper. The first one is washing of the feet. Write this down, please. Washing of the feet was an act of service, an act of humility. Jesus says to them, I am leaving an example for you on how I would like you to treat one another. So he's setting an example of service and an example of humility. The next part is he broke bread and gave thanks. Now, when we celebrate Mass, we believe that we receive the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist. We learned this in the first semester when we were talking about transubstantiation. We believe that the real presence of Christ is in the consecrated Eucharist, and it comes from this moment of the Last Supper where Jesus breaks the bread, he gives thanks, and then he shares the bread with his apostles and says, this is my body, which is given up for you. And then he takes the chalice and he says, this is my blood, which is given up for you. And when we celebrate Mass, we commemorate this very moment of Jesus' Last Supper. At the Last Supper,